Oh boy, Ryan Johnson is really swinging for the fences here, and I love it. Today we're diving into the latest on the Elias Pettersson trade discourse, linking him to Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. For days, we've been looking at the Penguins and asking what is it that the Canucks could get from Pittsburgh should Elias Pettersson inevitably waive. And this is all coming to us after some of the speculation that was linking Pettersson to Pittsburgh, rumors coming out that supposedly Petey doesn't really feel all too good about waiving to go to the Penguins at this stage. You know, anything can change with one phone call. All it takes is a team to try to force their luck at pushing the player out, and then, guess what? They're out. But Pittsburgh is apparently interested in taking on guys who are reclamation projects. And that's not surprising when you consider Kyle Dubas and his track record. He did that all the time in Toronto. Elias Pettersson heading over to the Penguins seems to be an ever-growing idea. And we already made a bunch of videos asking what the Canucks could get in return. Should it actually go down this way? Could Vancouver get themselves the Ruck Twins? Is that possible? Would Pittsburgh force Ryan Graves coming over to Vancouver, as was projected by Frank Saravalli on the now defunct Sportsnet 650? My heart breaks every time, man. Seriously, no more Halford and Bruff in the mornings. That's tough. But we now have some word as to what Ryan Johnson and the Vancouver Canucks are asking Pittsburgh for in these Elias Pettersson trade talks. And it comes to us from Andrew Filipponi, who does stuff for Pittsburgh 937 The Fan Radio. He's got 100,000 followers on Twitter, and he went out there and posted this. Our great Penguins analyst Tyler Kennedy is hearing the Pittsburgh Penguins have shifted their attention to trying to acquire Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. Kennedy says Vancouver wants Ben Kindel, and that's made the trade hard to make. Pettersson is a center coming off a 51-point season. He still has 6 years left. I don't know where 3 came in, at $11.6 million a year. Then Filipponi says, I do not think I would make this deal. So we all know the scoop here. Pettersson, 6 years left, $11.6 million a year, a player that is severely underperforming when it comes to the value of that contract. Maybe nowadays that contract isn't as bad as it was maybe a year or two ago. What, with Nico Hischier making 11.7, with Bowen Byram making 12.5, with Leo Carlson making 18. Pettersson at 11.6 is not that bad anymore. It's still, not great, but it's not as bad. Either way, Filipponi is still saying, I don't think I would make this deal. This tweet had 200,000 views and a whole bunch of replies. Here's another tweet from the mug. Tyler Kennedy, a Penguins analyst, was cited by Andrew Filipponi. The Penguins have reportedly shifted their attention in acquiring Elias Pettersson, and Vancouver wants Ben Kindel. Now, this is how some of the Canucks fan base is responding to this news. Pucker Glenn says, I gotta love Ryan Johnson for swinging for the fences on this trade. And so he should. Dragging Ben Kindel home as part of a good return package while exiting Petey would be a tidy piece of business. Think about it. Vancouver could be walking out of this situation, if it goes through, with Ben Kindel, Braden Coots, Caleb Malhotra, Adam Novotny, Zeev Buium, and Tom Wilander. Nice start to a good core. Now, for those who need the scoop here, Ben Kindel is one of the biggest surprises that we saw last season from the NHL Entry Draft into the actual campaign. Kindel is from Coquitlam, 19 years old, 5'11", 181, a right-handed center who was drafted 11th overall by the Penguins in 2025. He was a really great prospect out of the Calgary Hitmen, who had scored 99 points in 65 games played. And thus, his ranking, while you can say 11th was a bit early, he was projected to being a first-round guy. 22nd by Bob McKenzie, 20th by Elite Prospects, 19th by McKeen's and Future Considerations. That was the highest list that they had Kindel ranked on. Craig Button had him at 27, so even still, some of the lower-end rankings had Kindel as a first-round guy. He ends up going 11 to Pittsburgh, and against all odds, he actually makes the team. He plays 77 games for the Penguins and scores 35 points, 17 goals, 18 assists. Unfortunately, he didn't score anything in the Stanley Cup playoffs as the Penguins got eliminated in round 1. But ultimately, Ben Kindel is a 19-year-old center that already has significant NHL experience. That's noteworthy. That's really great, and this is a young guy that I think has a very nice top 6 center potential into the National Hockey League. Even the Elite Prospects Draft Guide, they went out there and talked about Ben Kindel as an A-grade prospect who has shades of Clayton Keller. If Vancouver can get the next Clayton Keller out of an Elias Pettersson trade, I'd say they're doing some pretty good work there, right? Ryan Johnson swinging for the fences here. You know, you gotta respect it. You absolutely gotta respect it. Nick Duke991 says, I like the high asking price. There is no point in doing cap gymnastics for the next few years if you're just going to get a couple of second-round picks back. I don't see Elias Pettersson returning Kindel, but maybe a package around a first and Horkoff with the Graves contract coming back works instead. So, there you go. The Ryan Graves conversation bringing itself back up again. The same argument that Frank Saravelli proposed, that Pittsburgh was supposedly tossing out there to teams looking to send them their expensive players. I mean, you can very well say that it's ridiculous to think that Ben Kindel is a part of any Elias Pettersson package, but look at what Pucker Glenn says here. If I was a Pens fan, I'd be pissed if that trade went through. This would be McGillney for Morrison all over again. Ben Kindel would be a hometown favorite. We can both go on and how good he is. I know it will be a bad trade for the Penguins. I'm just giving the Canucks GM credit for trying. And that absolutely is the case, right? Like, Penguins fans are so optimistic on Ben Kindel for a good reason. So trading this guy away for a guy that's considered a cap dump, quote unquote, that would piss off everybody. Even if it was Ben Kindel and Ryan Graves and all these other negatively valued assets. I mean, if Elias Pettersson finds out of Vancouver, he ends up leaving the team, he accepts a trade to Pittsburgh, whatever. I'm slowly becoming more and more optimistic that based off the way Ryan Johnson is making these trades, he's gonna get a good return. Like, you're not selling Pettersson for pennies on the dollar here, like some of us thought you might have to in order to get out of his contract. Now, with this new cap environment where 11.6 isn't that bad, the cap's rising so much that you can say that this contract is no longer an anchor. Maybe when you think about the upside of what Pettersson could be, maybe it's worth taking a shot on a guy who has such a high ceiling like Ben Kindel. If Elias Pettersson is a 100-point guy, then Pittsburgh loves him. They don't care about Ben Kindel anymore. If Pettersson gets 100 points with Andrei Kuzmenko, the Penguins make the playoffs, by some miracle they make the third round, Sidney Crosby and co. lead this team into the finals, and then they win, then you don't care about Ben Kindel anymore. You went out on the highest note possible. And Elias Pettersson, I'm not saying he's guaranteed to be that guy that allows you to do that, but if it works, it works. And that's kind of my philosophy about it, man. Elias Pettersson ain't that much of a bum. At least, I don't think so. Others may disagree, but still. You know who disagrees with this trade idea, though? Some of the folks on the Canucks subreddit. They went out there and posted this same thing, that Ryan Johnson is interested in Ben Kindel. I'm not convinced it's a good idea to trade Petey before we see him in Manny Malhotra's hands. But then another reply says, if the return is Ben Kindel, I think you take that and run. Yup, but don't trade him until this type of return is possible. There's no point in selling low. So, at the end of the day, Pettersson for Kindel. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How does that make you feel if you're a Canucks or a Penguins fan? Thoughts in the comments on the rumors and whether or not this actually makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.